The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Hello and welcome to another live episode of Wrestling with Johners. I think this is episode 296. So only a few away from that magical milestone figure of 300. And we'll talk about who my up-and-coming guests are between now and episode 300, which is only a few weeks away during the course of this interview. But today I'm very, very excited for my next guest. One of the most exciting young talents on the UK scene in 2023. He's currently the number one contender for the Southwest Wrestling Heavyweight title as we look ahead to his match against Chris Bronson on the 20th of May from the Exmouth Pavilion. He is farm strong. He is Toby Valentine. Toby, great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you, Jonas. Thank you for having me on. Excited to talk to you.
Oh, 100%. And we've seen a little bit of each other over the last few weeks in Tewkesbury and then Saturday in Salisbury, of course. But we'll talk all about that. We'll talk all about that for sure. But if you want to get in touch with Farm Strong Toby Valentine, you can do. Simply send us your questions. Send us any comments you might have or questions for Toby through using your chosen device. They'll ping through to us and we'll do our very best to answer them during the course of this interview. And I think we've had one or two come through already, Toby. So it's going to be a busy show and I'm really looking forward to speaking to you. But first of all, just a quick highlight of some of the interviews I've had recently, because this is the first interview of the month of May. But last month, April, because I was away on holiday, we only had 3 interviews, and they started with Ace Matthews, an excellent competitor from the north of the country, doing brilliant things for Tidal Championship Wrestling and True Grit, and of course 1PW, been featured on the first 3 of 1PW shows. We had an excellent interview a couple of weeks back. That's Ace Matthews, episode 293. Last week, I had 2 fabulous interviews. One guest there that I'm sure Toby is fully aware of. Niwa was my guest for episode 294. What a fantastic journey he's had from New Zealand to Mexico to all over Europe and the UK, doing wonderful things. Of course, he's a trailer at All Star Wrestling South with Joel Redman and the guys there. But in his own right, arguably one of the best pro wrestlers in the UK and further afield. But that was Niwa from last week. And I think this was Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, last week. 2 interviews in 1 week. RP Davies, the brand new Odyssey Pro champion, the TNT Ignition champion, does some wonderful things in the Northwest and further afield. But RP Davies was a wonderful guest and we had him on last week. And of course, just skipping ahead a little bit, episode 300, I alluded to it in the intro. We got the wonderful Nina Samuels coming on, the host of the Nina Samuels show, former WWE NXT UK star, of course, will be gracing us with her presence. And that is going to be, I think that's Monday, the 15th of May. So a couple of weeks' time. And Nina Samuels will be our special guest for our special milestone episode 300. So don't forget to kind of hit the subscribe button, if I can get it out, to make sure that you don't miss out on any of my up-and-coming interviews. And my guest today, he's right there and he's farm strong. And I've got a few pictures there just to demonstrate why he is farm strong. Look at that gentleman there. Look at the pictures. Look at the muscle. Absolutely means business all day long. But Toby, looking at the last 12 months or so, and we'll kind of get into detail of all this, but do you have to kind of pinch yourself when you think what a progression you've made in the wrestling business on the UK scene, how you've branched out, made so many debuts, but the last 12 months or 12 to 18 months, sorry, it's been a bit of a wild ride for you, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. It's hard to, I think I speak for a lot of the guys when it's like you don't really notice it when it's happening. You just, weeks go by and weekends go by and it's, I get to this show, get to this show, get to this show. And it's only when you look back on it that you sort of realize, I've been this many places and, been out the country and wrestled these great people. And looking back on it, it's fantastic. It'd be great if you could appreciate it in the moment a bit more, maybe.
Absolutely. And I mentioned about branching out and a lot of debuts, and pretty much everything's been a debut since since everybody came out of lockdown. August in 2021 was when you made your debut. So pretty much everything's been a debut since then. But promotions like PEW in Warwickshire, RWS in Radstock, LDN was a regular home of yours, of course, for a long time in 2021, 2022. Wrestling Society in Portishead, Full Force Wrestling, Odyssey Pro, I believe that you've been up there and made a couple of appearances in Morecambe, and of course, New Wave Wrestling in South Wales. So an impressive list of companies that you've performed for and performed at over the last year or so. But that's a list to be proud of, Toby.
Yeah, I think so. It sounds very impressive when you read it off, so thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I was just thinking then when you were reading off the names, there's Southwest Wrestling, of course, is a big one for me, and a special mention to Hard Knocks Pro Wrestling over in Limerick in Ireland as well, which is another fantastic place that I've had the opportunity to wrestle. So yeah, it's a good list when I hear it out loud.
Absolutely. And Southwest Wrestling, a great promotion that I've started working for, that you've had a few outings for in the southwest of England, of course. And I think the first time we actually bumped into one another was in Tewkesbury. And you just won your triple threat match to earn yourself a championship match against the champ for Southwest Wrestling's Heavyweight Championship. And it's just around the corner, 20th of May, the Exmouth Pavilion. Is going to be yourself and the stallion, Chris Bronson. So let's just bring up some pictures to demonstrate what we're talking about there. There's the graphic for the gold. And like I say, Southwest Wrestling has become a promotion that's become quite close to your heart. So to get that championship fairly so early on into your run, Toby, must be a bit of a thrill for you and a bit of validation as well.
Yeah, it really is. I made my debut for Southwest Wrestling. I can't remember the exact date now, but I remember that it was in the Gloucester Guild Hall against Country Big Josh Knott, who's a wrestler who
over a year now.
That sounds about right. And me and Country Big had a really hard hitting match, and it was Country Big's a wrestler that I got a lot of respect for. So getting to debut for Southwest against him was fantastic, and picked up a win there. And following on from there, picked up some wins along the way against some really great wrestlers, including that triple threat against JD Knight and Buzzsaw Bronson. So it's been a steady sort of uphill journey towards the championship, and finally getting to wrestle Chris Bronson is really made it all worth it.
Absolutely. We're going to talk a bit more about that match just around the corner. I think less than 3 weeks away. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play the interview that I had with Chris Bronson at Tewkesbury after he won his championship match against Niwa to confirm the lineup for the championship match. Of course, yourself versus Chris Bronson at Exmouth Pavilion. And here's what he had to say after his match with some words for yourself. John backstage here at Southwest Wrestling. Let me introduce to you the Southwest Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, the Stallion, Chris Bronson. Congratulations on your win there, beating Niwa in the main event. I'd love to know your thoughts on your victory there. And of course, you had Toby Valentine come out and challenge you for the next show for your championship in May. Give us your thoughts, champ.
I'll tell you how I feel. Let me tell you this. I just been through a hell of a battle with Niwa. I just bashed him pillar to post in Tewkesbury. Okay, Toby Valentine comes out after I defend my gold. He comes out, gets in my face, declaring he wants a shot at the title. Toby Valentine, when it comes to the 20th of May in the Exmouth Pavilion, I'm going to bash your little farmer head in across the pillars, across the post. I am going to destroy you, Toby Valentine. There's levels to this game, Toby, and you're not on mine.
Wow, some pretty strong words there from the champ. But I don't know if you've seen that before, but any thoughts as to what he has to say? He says he's going to bash your farmer's head from pillar to post. Pretty strong words, but how would you like to retort to Chris's little promo interview he did there in Tewkesbury?
Yeah, really strong words from the champ. And, he's got a lot of confidence, and rightly so. He's the heavyweight champion, and he's regarded by you know, a lot of people, including me, as one of the best guys, you know, in the Southwest, but all over the place, you know, and up and coming as well. He's getting around everywhere. He's having a lot of people talk about him. And this match that we're going to have on the 20th of May at the Exmouth Pavilion is something that, you know, I've wanted for a really long time, something I know the Southwest wrestling fans have wanted for quite a long time. And it's quite ironic, him talking about bashing my farmer head in when I know he had a similar upgrowing to mine. Maybe he forgot about that. Maybe he thinks he outgrew it, but he hasn't. So we'll get to the 20th of May and we'll see just exactly who gets battered pillar to post, because, you know, it's not going to be an easy ride for Chris Bronson.
No, I'm sure. I hope he's not underestimating you in this championship match. And there we go. Wrestleversary 3. This is the biggest show of the year for Southwest Wrestling at the Exmouth Pavilion, Saturday, the 20th of May. Get yourself down there. I'm sure tickets are available. I'm just trying to see how tickets are available. I'm sure if you go to Southwest Wrestling's socials, you'll be able to be directed to the various ticket platforms there. But this is what he was alluding to, yourself coming out after the main event in Tewkesbury, and a fantastic venue, a red hot crowd, and that sent them home nicely with yourself presenting yourself as the number one contender. This is the show we're looking forward to, and like I say, less than 3 weeks away. I mean, how are you? I mean, it's going to be a very physical match against Chris. I think you're under no illusions. I'm under no illusions. It's going to be a very, very physical match between two big guys. Are you physically prepared for Chris, but also are you mentally prepared for the match as well, and potentially for the onslaught?
I'll definitely say I'm physically prepared. You know, this is something that I've been working towards for a really long time. And, you know, it went through a really tough match, the triple threat against Buzzsaw and JD, who basically, you know, teamed up together to try and put me out of action, but got through that, managed to see Chris Bronson scrape through by the skin of his teeth against Niwa in another really hard hitting match. But, you know, when we collide on the 20th of May, you know, physically and mentally, I'm definitely ready for it. I've been preparing for it for a really long time.
Would you say that this is possibly, I mean, you've had a lot of tough opponents. You've had a lot of tough matches, a lot of physical matches. You're a physical type of wrestler, but would you say this is potentially your biggest and maybe toughest match that you've had so far in your young career?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've wrestled, you know, really big guys over my short career so far. Guys like Country Big, guys like Jim Die Hard, Yeston Rees, really recently the Kings of the North. You know, I'm no stranger to physical matches, but it's not just about the physical. You know, it's about the occasion against Chris. It's for the championship. It's in Exmouth, which is really close to my hometown. And it's a match that's been built up a really long time, not just by me, but by a lot of people I know, something that's really highly anticipated. So it's about not letting the moment get to you, as well as, you know, being physically ready for the match as well. So it's definitely the biggest match of my career so far.
Yeah. And a final question for me regarding the 20th of May and working towards, or looking ahead towards Bronson, the champion, of course. I'm hoping he isn't underestimating you, but what do you think the difference is going to be between winning and losing that match, and potentially winning, but being the new SWW champion? What do you think is going to be the key differences for yourself?
That's a really good question. I think it's just about determination, you know, dogged determination. I have wanted to wrestle Chris for a really long time. I've wanted to win the SWW Heavyweight Championship for a really long time, since I first wrestle for SWW. So it's all about the mindset. You know, I'm going in fully prepared for the match and really, really, really wanting to beat Chris, show everybody that I'm on the same level as him and as all the other guys on that level, and walking away with the championship. I think I've got the determination to do that.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, you could be looking on the right-hand side of your screen at the brand new Southwest Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, when all said and done, from the Exmouth Pavilion on the 20th of May. But we also had a chance to talk in Tewkesbury, the wonderful venue there, backstage. after you'd won your triple threat match. And just to prove, like I say, I do kind of have high standards when it comes to interviews, but just to prove that it doesn't always go plain sailing, and these interviews don't always go as well as we would hope. Just have a little watch of this.
Oh no!
You'll talk to the camera.
Either way, can I just get you to take a little step in, and whenever you're ready, mate.
Cool. John is backstage here at Southwest Wrestling. I'm joined by Farm Strong Toby Valentine. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you, Johners. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to a very exciting show here at the George Watson Memorial Hall. Packed crowd today, and you're going to be in a triple threat today. So what do you know about your opponents, and what can we expect from you?
Well, it's a big test for me today, Johners. You know, it's going to be me against... Oh, that was real bad.
That was great.
That was...
And if you didn't quite catch the background noise there, that was where, I don't know, a local pub or something was emptying their bottles into the bottle bin mid-interview. So I put that one into my little bloopers folder, but always fun to look back at. But we had a lot of fun doing that interview, didn't we? And like I say,
a lot of fun, and I was a lot more tan there than I am now, which is really upsetting me. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about your gimmick and the Farm Strong moniker nickname, because you've obviously heard of Super Strong Style and Strong Style Wrestling and various things with strong in it. That seems to be a popular nickname or for promotions or for wrestlers. But Farm Strong, I've not heard before until coming across yourself, of course. Now, tell us a little bit about where the nickname originated from, what it means to you, what it stands for as far as Toby Valentine.
Sure. Well, the nickname itself, Farm Strong, is it's kind of a dig a little bit about guys who maybe grew up farming or in the countryside and whatever, who are really strong but don't look like it, if you see what I mean.
Sure.
So I grew up with a lot of guys, played rugby with a lot of guys who were farmers, who grew up in the sticks, and they're real strong guys. They'll take you down and handle themselves well in a fight and lift some heavy weight, but they look like your average guy on the street. So if you were farm strong, that meant you were strong, but you really didn't look like it. You just looked like somebody's dad or something. But the moniker Farm Strong, when it translates to me and translates to my wrestling, it's just sort of me paying a bit of respect to the guys I grew up with and the people who raised me, who people who farm for their livelihoods, and that's all they know. They're real tough people, real strong-willed people, and they deal with a lot of adversity, and they have to deal with a lot of struggle and a lot of hard times. It's not a Dusty Rhodes joke, I swear, but they've got a lot of mental fortitude, all of them. So Farm Strong for me just means that you are able to put up with a lot of adversity and keep going. Whatever obstacles are thrown in your way, you overcome it and you keep going. Being Farm Strong isn't about the physical; it's more about the mental. To me, that's how I see it.
Absolutely. And another famous wrestler who grew up and worked on a farm and probably still has his own farm on a huge plot of land, I'm sure, but Brock Lesnar. And he could be described as Farm Strong. And that's kind of where he got his physique from working on the farm from a very young age. But don't know if you knew that. Little bit of random facts. I'm good for random facts.
Oh, yeah, dairy farming in Minnesota. That's hard work. Hard work.
Absolutely, and he's up there in Saskatoon now, Canada, with his huge plot of land, and I'm sure, like I say, a little bit of a farm there as well. But I've got this picture up, not to embarrass you, but like I say, does this kind of demonstrate a little bit of your kind of farming heritage? A little bit of a cowboy look there, if anything, a little bit of a cowboy look. If
that's not embarrassing at all. Look at that handsome devil there. Beautiful. Maybe not so much the farm element, more my love of the Western, but. Yeah, that was at my cousin's wedding. That was on the farm I grew up on, actually. But yeah, that's what I like to call Farm Strong Formal, I think is what I'll call
Farm
that.
Strong Formal. You're very handsome indeed. Very handsome.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Now, we spoke about Tewkesbury and the build up to Exmouth May 20th, but the last time we saw each other, believe it or not, was only 2 days ago in Salisbury. We was both at Joel Redmond's All-Star Wrestling South training school. And what a wonderful day it was. And it was my first kind of exposure to an actual training school. And I think I was there from 8, but from 9 o'clock through till 1:30, there was about 30 trainees that turned up from the south and the southwest and maybe further afield for this wonderful open day that Joel had along with trainers. Niwa wasn't there, but Bullet was, and Eddie Ryan and LA Taylor were there as guest coaches for the day. Got to see yourself, and I was just blown away by kind of the drills and the rigorous exercises that they put you through, and like I say, as well as the grappling and the wrestling, and there was a whole range of abilities there, from novices through to experienced pros. But give us your kind of insight into Saturday, because I went away from that very, very motivated. I thought it was a very positive day.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was a really positive day. So I went on Saturday to Joel's to ASW South with Eddie Ryan, like you said, one of the guest coaches. Eddie is my original wrestling coach. He's the person who, has sort of, it sort of made me the wrestler I am, I like to think. And along with a good 3 carloads, we came up from the southwest, from Plymouth to Joel's. And it was, fantastic experience. I've been to Joel's sessions, Joel's training at ASW South a couple of times before that. One time for a Johnny Kidd seminar and one time just for regular training before that. But that was when Joel was still coaching out of a attic in a gym in Salisbury with no ventilation and a low ceiling, and it was real hard graft. But now, of course, he's got the training unit with a ring and a matted area and all this space, which is really wonderful. For anyone who experienced the attic before, it's far cry from that. But if anyone knows Joel, he is an incredibly hard taskmaster. He is considered by most people as one of the best wrestlers in Europe or the world. I know I listened to Bullet's interview that I listened to Niwa's interview that you had with him a couple of days ago, where he said he considers Joel one of the best in the world, and I think a lot of people would agree with him there. Yeah. So he expects a high standard.
Bullet said the same. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. Bullet, I know, credits Joel for a lot of his success. But so when you go and get trained by Joel, he expects a lot from you, and he will tell you that, and he will show you that. But it's all for your betterment, and it's always a really positive learning experience. You come away from a training session with Joel knowing 10 times what you knew when you walked in there. So having all the guys that were there, like you said, beginners all the way up to advanced, Joel's got his crop of, there they are there. There's Jordan Sparks showing off his traps right in the front, next to Nathan Angel, one of the best tans I've ever seen on a blonde man. But Joel's got his crop of guys, Nathan being one of them. There's a few guys in there, Ollie Blake, Brandon Lee, Scott Jones, Ripper Reed, who's now in Japan, representing the SW South. Joel's got these guys, and, they're some of the best young talents in the UK. They're fantastic. They've been trained the right way. They've trained really hard. They've got fantastic cardio, fantastic wrestling. You can't knock anything that they've learned at ASW South. I think it's such a fantastic place to train. Some of the best coaches, Joel especially, but there's, Niwa and Bullet there, 2 of the best heavyweights in wrestling. Yeah. Not a lot more you could ask for really out of ASW South.
Absolutely. Get down there, or at least check out All-Star Wrestling South's social pages. Get in touch if you're a newbie, a novice, want to get involved. Then, like I say, the doors are open. They do have beginners classes through to advanced and intermediate. But to get yourself down there if you're in the southwest or anywhere near the Salisbury area, like I say, you will not regret it. But another group that you're heavily involved with, and we spoke a bit about this before we went live, and that's New Wave Wrestling, New Wave Academy in South Wales. and another fantastic crop there. I think there's James Mason in the ring there, who must have just given a seminar next to the main man, Brendan White, and I think you're in that picture, just sat on the ring apron, just
right, dead centre middle, can't miss me
in the centre. But Jordan Sparks and a few others are in there that I recognise.
Oh yeah, he always finds his way to the front of the picture. It's just Jordan. He's very good at that.
Has got his traps out this time, but maybe next time. But there's a few other familiar faces there, and like I say, that's where you're more familiar with and a more regular visitor to. I understand, and like I say, it's in South Wales, so still maybe a little bit of a journey for you. But like I say, we speak about All-Star Wrestling South and Joel Redman, and then kind of looking at coaches on the same level, Brendan White, and what a fantastic team and facilities they have there with Nico Angelo and Wild Boar and Danny Luna. But it must be kind of a bit of a blessing to go there and to learn from that crop of fantastic coaches, once again, with another fantastic crop of talent and trainees.
Absolutely, yeah. Just got done praising ASW South to the hill, and I'm going to do the exact same thing with New Wave. So yeah, like you said, it's a bit of a drive. We come from Plymouth, so it's about 2.5 hours to training that we have to go to New Wave, but we do it every week, at least a carload of us, usually more than that, because it's such a fantastic place to train. Like you mentioned, they've got Wild Boar there coaching, Brendan White, Nico Angelo, Danny Jones, Danny Luna. I hope I'm not missing anyone, but they just some of the best coaches that you can ask for. Wild Boar has had all that experience on NXT UK, and he's really great about sharing his experiences there, as well as just his wrestling career in general. They've got a really top-notch facility there with the ring up all the time, and a lot of space there to do drills and things. And it's just a really fun atmosphere. Sometimes you can go to some training schools and maybe it's not always fun. Sometimes it, can feel more challenging than anything else. But at New Wave, it's always fun, and the work's still hard. Wild Boar still expects a lot from you, to try your best and really put some effort in all the time, because the training sessions are, only 2 hours. So it's not like it's all day long. So you put in a shift while you're there. But, I can't say enough good things about how well they treat their trainees there. Everyone has access to free ring time outside of training so that they get more practice time. All the coaches are really attentive to all the trainees. So, everybody's needs are met, beginners up to advanced. And, it just speaks volumes that they get so many great seminars there. That was that picture of James Mason, who was there quite recently. As well as they've had Doug Williams before and Shah Samuels recently, so they get some really fantastic names in to share their knowledge. And Brendan, he's really, really fantastic about just wanting everyone to get better. It's not about money. It's not about, well, of course it's about money, but it's not all about money. It's more about wanting to see everyone succeed. He always says he wants people to get on, the highest level they can and get out there and get wrestling and get their names known. So you can't really ask for more than that from your trainers.
Absolutely. And I've had several guests this year alone that from the South Wales area or near to, that are all involved with the New Wave Academy there, from Aluna Blue, the Brill, James Ellis. I've had on the show Shane Hooker, Bowlerama, Harrison Bennett, and of course the main man, Brendan White. But you've had a couple of outings for New Wave Wrestling since they've started up shows. I think they've done 5, maybe 6, possibly just 5 shows at the moment. But you were involved in their Rumble at the back end of January earlier on this year that crowned their first New Wave Wrestling champion. Of course, that was the Brill, the Brilliance, Good as Gold, James Ellis, that won that battle royal to become their first champion. But you were part of that battle royal. I think there was 29 others, so 30 in total. What was that experience like? Because that would have been your first proper outing for New Wave in front of fans, and possibly only their third show. But any memories from that battle royal?
Yeah, absolutely. So, New Wave, being based in Wales, is not an area of the UK that I've previously that I'd been to very often, especially not for wrestling. So I didn't know a lot of the guys. I didn't, I went there with a couple guys from Plymouth who I knew, but getting to know a lot of the guys in the locker room there was a fantastic experience. Like you said, mentioned a few names there like James Ellis and Shane Hooker. Shane, who's fantastic, and and the Brill, who obviously, went on to win their championship and has got one of the brightest futures, I think, in wrestling. He's really fantastic. As much as he is a loudmouth who, needs to be taken down a few pegs sometimes, he's also a very fantastic wrestler. But again, to Brendan's credit, everyone in that locker room was made to feel really welcome at New Wave. They, took care of the talent there with, drinks and food and all sorts in the back. And the Battle Royal itself, I wasn't very successful in it, but I did manage to get my hands on James Ellis when I first went out there. So I count that as a big personal victory for me. But yeah, it was just fantastic to be able to be out there in front of that New Wave crowd, in the St. Andrew's Church. It's a really fantastic venue. It's, and they've got such a dedicated fan base there that really they're really invested in the guys there. Nico Angelo is just revered by their fans. They absolutely love their homegrown guys, and they really respect, the wrestling that they see and the guys that they see. So it was great being able to be in there. I wish I'd been able to stay in there longer and do better, but Nico Angelo had other plans and dumped me out. So bit of a shame there.
There we go. Never mind. But one thing I do want to talk to you about regarding New Wave Wrestling is that they've officially launched their tag team division. And I don't know if tag team titles are around the corner. I'm sure we'll get an announcement about that soon. But you was involved in a match not too far around the corner. It was this one here. It's the Iron Hearts, earlier last month, the 14th of April. And there's yourself and Jordan Sparks, the Blockbusters, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys had a tremendous match, but you kicked off with a win to kind of officially launch the New Wave Wrestling Tag Team Division. But I'd say exciting times. And I also want to talk to you about the finisher. Now, I'm not sure what you call this. I'm pretty sure that's yourself and Jordan and one member of your opposing tag team there. It looks like some kind of electric chair into a Blockbuster double team maneuver there. I'm sure you can pronounce or kind of say it a little bit more eloquently, or maybe give it a name. But thinking back to that, you did get a win, so congratulations. And like I say, now they've formally announced their tag team division. Pretty exciting times, especially kicking it off with a win for yourself and Jordan.
Absolutely, yeah. New Wave really wants to put a big emphasis on tag team wrestling, which is fantastic. There's a great crop of tag teams in the UK. I'm wearing one of their t-shirts right now, the Smoking Aces. But they really want to put an emphasis on tag teams and new tag teams as well. So me and Jordan, we haven't been tagging for very long. We're a pretty new tag team, and the Iron Hearts, they're not new to wrestling, but they haven't had a lot of run-outs as a team, so they're getting their opportunities, and there's a few other teams that are getting their opportunities as well. So we were given the chance to go out on the latest New Wave show and sort of showcase the New Wave Wrestling Tag Team Division, which was a big honor for us and a big opportunity to show people what we're about. And like you say, a winning outing for me and Jordan. We beat the Iron Hearts with, we call it the box office sensation, which is the electric chair Blockbuster. And I can tell you that I'm so happy to be the one on the bottom there doing the electric chair. Jordan is definitely the high flyer out of the two of us, and he's got that responsibility. So good for him. But we were really, really proud and really happy to pick up a win at New Wave, and just to be given the opportunity to be in that position was fantastic for us.
Absolutely. And the two of you clearly have chemistry. And I know going back through your matches, you have a bit of a long history with Jordan Sparks, and mostly as an opponent on the opposite side of the ring for LDN and one or two other companies. And of course, you've come together as a tag team, possibly only as recent as maybe October or November last year. We've had a few matches. So, but even knowing him as an opponent, I know you're probably good friends outside of the ring, but this chemistry has definitely formed between the two of you. Obviously now, I'd say kickstarting a very bright future as a tag team, certainly in New Wave.
Yeah, I like to think so. Yeah, me and Jordan obviously have known each other since I started training. He's a fantastic wrestler, and everybody should know how good he is and should seek him out because he's fantastic. He's, again, I talk about Chris Bronson and James Ellis being some of the best up-and-comers in the country. I'll put Jordan in that conversation any day of the week. But like you said, we're more used to being opponents. We have fought each other, I don't even know how many times, definitely over 35, 40 times, I think.
Wow.
We're really used to each other. So becoming a team, it was an interesting decision at first, but I think it's definitely something that's going to pay off because we know each other really well. Our styles as wrestlers mix really well. We are both really heavily inspired by the same kind of wrestling, the sort of 70s and 80s territory American style wrestling, where the world class is in the Mid-Souths. So, we just gel really well together as a team. And we've had some great matches already so far. Not too many, but already some great ones. And I'm really looking forward to where we can go as a team. I'm hoping there's definitely going to be some gold in the future.
Well, it's already very impressive. I mean, just got to look at that finisher that you two have put together and already racking up 1 or 2 wins. But very excited to see where the future of the Blockbusters head. But before we talk about any more future matches, I just want to kind of bring up some photos. Look at these guys here.
Look at those guns.
Look at that.
And the traps on Jordan Sparks. Ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
That's his best feature. He never stops talking about his traps.
I'm going to be getting him on the show in a couple of months' time, so I'm sure that'll be a topic of conversation. But
he'll talk about his own traps for a long time, so try not to keep him on that subject too long.
I'll start the podcast early. I think I'll start about 7 instead of 8 o'clock.
Good plan.
Before you two with the Blockbusters, am I right in thinking that you did maybe 1 or 2 matches under a different tag team name? Does the Pretty Sexy Playboys ring any bells?
Oh, the Pretty Sexy Playboys rings a big bell.
Now, I know you two are a couple of good-looking gents, but what inspired that name?
Honestly, me and Jordan have done a lot of wrestling on the camp show, holiday camp show circuit, and experimenting with different stuff on the camp shows and trying out different styles of wrestling and different techniques. And something that kind of stuck were the nicknames between the two of us was Jordan Sparks, Pretty Sexy Jordan Sparks, and the Playboy Toby Valentine, heavily inspired by the Fabulous Freebirds. Again, we'll keep harkening back to 80s territory wrestling whenever we can. And then it sort of kind of meshed together, and we did a few tag team matches on the holiday camps as the Pretty Sexy Playboys, and it sort of bled out into the real world. And we not many outings as the Pretty Sexy Playboys, and mostly in Ireland as well. It pops up every now and again.
And it has a certain ring to it, but maybe, when the Blockbuster gimmick kind of dies off a little bit, you can go back to the Pretty Sexy Playboy. At least you've got something to fall back on then. But I'm going to bring up a few more pictures. And when I saw this on your socials, I thought, I've got to speak to Toby Valentine about this match here. You told me off air that this happened maybe a week or 2 weeks ago against arguably one of the best tag teams in the UK, in Europe, further afield, some might say. Bonesaw and Corvin, the Kings of the North. Multiple tag team champions up and down the UK. TNT Extreme certainly springs to mind. ICW. But yourself there and Jordan, that must have been a bit of a mix of emotions. On one hand, you must have been thrilled to have been paired up against them or to be put on the poster and in the ring with them, but maybe slightly apprehensive at the same time. I certainly would be anyway.
Yeah, you'd definitely be right about that, Johners. When that match got announced, it was very exciting. The Kings of the North, like you said, they are definitely one of the best tag teams, certainly in the UK, probably further afield. They're both big guys, they're heavy hitters, they're experienced veterans, and they're the Kings of the North name is known by pretty much everybody. So it was very exciting knowing we were going to get this opportunity. But at the same time, it was quite terrifying knowing that they're, again, two of the biggest heavy-hitting veterans that there is in tag team wrestling. So we went into that match fully knowing and fully expecting that we were going to get into a pretty hard-hitting and drag-out fight. But we prepared ourselves for it, and, I think we gave a good accounting of ourselves.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And another tag team, another match that you had, and I think this was a little bit longer ago, a little bit further down the line, maybe back end of last year, and I'm sure the date will pop up on the screen. In fact, very recent, only April, so just over a month ago. And it was yourself and Jordan, once again, the Blockbusters against the Entitled. And of course, this is for PEW. I think we're going to be talking about PEW again before the end of this broadcast. But Brady Phillips, Riley Nova. Brady Phillips, arguably one of the best pros in the UK and has been for many, many years, and deserves to be on many more people's radars and on many people's more card. And Riley Nova, one of the best up-and-comers in the UK. That must have been, once again, another hard-hitting match between two big, hard-hitting and somewhat, speedy guys. Brady Phillips is a master of pretty much all techniques. But what was that like?
Yeah, again, really fantastic opportunity for us. I'd wrestled at Phenomenal Elite Wrestling beforehand, but Jordan hadn't. So it was his first time there, and getting to go straight into a match against their tag team champions, big opportunity, big chance for us. And like you said, it was another, a real hard-hitting match, really athletic. Brady Phillips may be one of the best athletes that I've ever got into a ring with. He's a really big guy. He's tall and, really well built, but he moves like a cruiserweight. He is a really fantastic athlete. So, and Riley Nova's no slouch either. He's really quick, really smooth. So it was a really great match that we were able to have with the Entitled. Again, a losing effort. That seems to be a bit of a running theme for us. But it was still a great opportunity, and I think we endeared ourselves to the PEW fans. So hopefully we'll be back again, maybe to try for the belts again at some point down the line.
Absolutely. And I had Rob Drake on the podcast last year. He described Brady Phillips as a freak. Because he can just pluck anybody out the air and do pretty much anything he wants to do in that ring. He really is an unsung hero of the British wrestling scene. And I showed you this picture before we went live, Toby, and there's yourself and Jordan, a double leapfrog over Brady Phillips there. But that's something you don't see every day. And from two big guys such as yourself and Jordan, that looks pretty fun, interesting. You did tell me off air that it very nearly didn't happen the way it looked like it happened in the photo there.
Sailing me down the river there, Johners. Yeah, so I give a big shout out to Wrestleography, the photographer who took that picture, because he did us a great service, because I did nearly fall and land square on my ass after coming down from that leapfrog. But no, me and Jordan, we like to innovate as much as we can and pull some stuff out of the bag that maybe people haven't seen before. And the double leapfrog is, within our skill set. We're pretty athletic lads as well, so we like to pull out stuff like that every now and again.
Absolutely. I want to take a deep dive into more of your highlights from the last year or two very, very soon. But I want to talk a little bit about your wrestling fandom now. And so obviously still a young gent in the business, been in the business for a couple of years now. We'll talk about the training and everything very, very soon. But when did you first become a wrestling fan? Kind of when did it first kind of take you by storm, so to speak, and pull you into what was happening on your television screen?
Well, the story I always got told was that I was flicking through the channels one day at 4 years old, and just, like you do with the remote when you were younger, just flick, 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 going through whatever. And the story goes that the channel flipped to wrestling, to the WWE, and I just stopped dead in my tracks and was just fixated on it. And it pretty much had been that way for my entire life from that point. I've been a wrestling fan since as long as I can remember. And it's always stayed with me. I've never really taken a break from it or gone away from it. I've been a fan for so long. When I was really young, I was going to be a wrestler. That was always the plan for 8-year-old me or whatever. But you get older and go away from that. But thankfully, I did revisit it. But yeah, it was just nothing specific jumps out at me as that was what caught my eye. I just know that one day I happened across it, and that was it. I was fixated ever since.
Absolutely. I think we've all got a similar story to that, to be honest with you. It's just one of them things, as soon as it comes onto your TV screen, it just pulls you in and you're captivated from that moment onwards. But speaking of, being captivated, who were some of the larger than life characters that kind of captivated you and pulled you in as a fan?
Yeah, when I very, very first started watching wrestling, it was I remember it was Shawn Michaels that was a big draw for me. Something about Shawn Michaels just being such a great performer like he was, the drama that you always got from his matches was something that pulled me in. And then sort of later on down the line, the more in depth I got into my love of wrestling, I would go back and watch older stuff and got my hands on DVDs, VHSs, magazines, all kinds of stuff, and was really transfixed by the older generations of pro wrestling, especially from America. I'm a terrible British wrestler because my British wrestling history fandom isn't fantastic, but my American is very good. So I was hugely influenced by the Von Erich family when I was growing up. I'm a huge fan of Kerry Von Erich specifically, and Kevin Von Erich, and the whole family. But their story and the kind of guys that they were, the sort of all-American blue chipper good guys, that resonated with me when I was younger. I think you either go one way or the other. When you're younger, you either want to be the superhero or you want to be the bad guy and get to do the bad stuff. I was always on the hero side. So the Von Erichs really stood out for me as these sort of like all-encompassing good guys who always fought the bad and always came out on top in the end. And that really stuck with me. And I'd like to think that comes across in my wrestling now, is my love for the Von Erichs.
Oh, absolutely. And, speaking about good guy and bad guy, and I think I've only ever known you as a babyface, as a good guy.
I'm a good guy.
Absolutely. And I think with that, you obviously get the love from the crowd, you get the love and the adoration from the audience. And that's important, isn't it? For a character like yourself, you are a very popular character, but to have the fan support can give you that extra 5-10% when you need it, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest selling points for professional wrestling for me is the energy that you get from a wrestling crowd. Is there's not a lot of other stuff like it. I've never played music or been a singer or stand up or anything. I'm sure it's very similar, but something very specific about wrestling fans and wrestling crowds and how invested they get into their favorite wrestlers and the wrestlers that they hate the most and they want to see lose. There's just something about that energy that's really special and really specific to wrestling that, I think is just amazing. It's such a surreal experience that's hard to explain to people who don't know anything about wrestling. They might think it's a bit strange or, a bit ridiculous, but until you experience, something like, when I went as a fan to NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff and watched Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster win the NXT UK tag team titles in person.
Yeah,
that kind of experience, that kind of reaction from a crowd, there's nothing else like it that I've ever experienced, and it's a high that you don't really get over, I don't think.
No, absolutely. And I was there as well in person, and what an electric...
What a great show. That was such a good show.
100% in the main event. But out of all the shows available, that's one of the shows I go back to every so often. But we've had a few people that are watching this live and a few people that have reached out. And a certain Ollie Blake has reached out. Hi, Ollie. Great wrestler, great attitude to the sport. Looking forward to a singles match down the line. So that would be a good match. Certainly Ollie Blake versus Toby Valentine. What do you say to that one? A little bit of a challenge thrown out there, Toby. Oh, Toby, are you there?
Oh, okay.
I think you froze a little bit there. We've got you back.
Fantastic.
There we go. So Ollie Blake, looks like you sent out a message. Great wrestler, great attitude to the sports. Looking forward to a singles match down the line. So any thoughts on that? Ollie Blake, obviously a tremendous talent, and he was in Salisbury over the weekend with us too, and with Joel. Had a little bit of a chat with him afterwards. But looks like the two of you on the same card in the same match. That'll be pretty tasty for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you say, Ollie Blake is a fantastic talent. The Lightning Kid, one of Joel Redmond's standout trainees at ASW South. he's a fantastic guy. He's a great athlete, he's in fantastic shape. He's a great technical wrestler, a great high flyer, all around great guy. I'd love to have a match with him one of these days. It'd be, really fun, really fun.
I can see that, Per, and I can see that happening for sure. That'll be really good fun. I'll make sure that I'm there when it does happen. But speaking of your fandom and kind of transitioning from being a fan to wanting to become a pro wrestler, how did you make that transition? How did you make that first important step to wanting to become a pro wrestler? And tell us kind of how that happened and when that happened.
Yeah, so I'd been a wrestling fan for so long. And like I said, when I was younger, I wanted to do it. Grew out of it, just carried on doing what I was doing. And it wasn't until it was around my 21st birthday, I want to say, that I sort of made up my mind and made this decision in my head that I had to try it. Because if I didn't try it, I'd regret it forever. It's something that's always been in my mind, something I've always wanted to do. I had to try it because otherwise, I think about it forever. So I contacted a training school in Exeter. And I just showed up one day, one September morning, and there was no one there. The coaches weren't there. The ring was not there. Nothing was there. There were just a handful of trainees there who had shown up and that just found out, like I did, that there was no training really to speak of that day. But whatever happened, a key was given to one of the trainees who opened up, and we didn't really do anything. I think we locked up a few times and we did something, and we might have practiced promos. I don't really remember the days really well in my mind, but I just remember even from that small, really sort of nothing experience that I was hooked straight away, which you always are. I think everybody says that. Everybody who has one training session is like, well, that was it. And I got the bug, and that's it. I'm here now. So I went to that one training session, caught the bug, kept going for a few weeks, and then I completely destroyed my right shoulder in the gym, not at wrestling. So I couldn't then train anymore. And that was right at the end of 2019. Going into 2020, and my shoulder was starting to heal up sort of February, March time, and then the world ended. So there was no training, there was no nothing. I was sitting at home just sort of twiddling my thumbs and had fully recovered from my injury. And I was like, it's really disappointing. There's not going to be any wrestling anymore, because I was starting to get into it. And then I just spoke to one of the trainees that I'd met from my first experience, and they said, there's a company doing wrestling training in Plymouth, and they're going to do it during the sort of break between the lockdowns that there were in the summer of 2020.
I remember.
So I got myself down there in the summer of 2020 and just started up training again. And it was, in between lockdowns. So there was training, and then there wasn't, and then there was again. And it was very stop-start. But it wasn't until I met Eddie Ryan down in Plymouth that I really, and COVID ended properly, or not ended, but the pandemic lockdowns ended, and we were able to train properly. And it was only then, when I met Eddie Ryan, that I was able to start training properly, really take it seriously. I was driving down to Plymouth from my hometown in Holsby 3-4 times a week, an hour and a half there and an hour and a half back every day after work. And I was going down there as often as I could to be trained by Eddie, to put in as much work as I could. And it just went from there. And I, haven't looked back since. It's been the best experience of my life.
So quite unique circumstances under which you were carrying out your training a little bit before pandemic, and then obviously you got injured, continued your training with Eddie, of course, and then straight out of lockdown, I think early August 2021, when the rest of the UK wrestling business kind of reopened its doors again to fans, you made your debut. Now, I mean, did you feel, obviously, there was a lot of expectation on the UK wrestling business having reopened its doors, and a lot of apprehension, a lot of interest as to what was going to happen. And there were you making your debut. Did you feel confident? Did you feel ready before you stepped through the curtain that first time?
Oh, not at all. No, terrible. The very first match that I had was a singles match in Evesham, which is about 3 hours away from Plymouth.
Wow.
So it was an incredibly long drive, and I was the first match on the card. against a guy who I had trained with, a guy who now wrestles under the name Bestie Jones. We were on first in the card. I was severely out of shape and not very good, really. I lost the match. There were maybe 20 to 25 people in the crowd. And at that point in 2021, we were still practicing a bit of social distancing. So everyone in the crowd individually was spaced out 2 meters apart.
Yeah.
So no one cheered or clapped or booed. We more or less wrestled in silence in front of 20 people. And I came back through the curtain, collapsed onto the floor, panting for my life. And I was thinking to myself, I need to do that again at the first opportunity that comes up. It was fantastic.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure it didn't knock your confidence, despite how exhausted you were after the match. But did it give you a lot of insight, just that one single match, into what you had to do differently, or how you had to switch things up for match 2, 3, 4, and 5, and kind of progress and get better from there?
Definitely, yeah. It's not until that you step into a ring and have a match that you realise just exactly what the conditioning required is. You know, I've grown up playing sport my whole life. I was a rugby player for a long time and played to a pretty high standard and thought of myself as being pretty fit and being in the gym and stuff. But that very first match really humbled me as to how difficult it is being a wrestler and how much work you have to put in to be properly conditioned, because, you know, there's nothing else like it. There's nothing else that knackers you out as much as wrestling does. So the biggest thing for me coming back from that match was I need to get in better shape, do this more, and not collapse every time that I come back through the curtain, especially not when you're on shows with people like Joel Redmond and Niwa, who will look at you with disgust because they are some of the most well-conditioned athletes that I've ever met in my life.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm intrigued to know, when did you start using or demonstrating the Farm Strong gimmick or persona? I'm guessing was it from match 1? I'm assuming not, but how soon did you start developing a bit of a character, and when did Farm Strong first come into fruition?
I think that I can't actually remember if I was using the Farm Strong nickname immediately. I think I was, or
oh wow,
if not from the first match, then from pretty early on. I've never really considered myself as a character or a gimmick. I'm just sort of me. I'm just a guy who grew up on a farm in the middle of Devon, and I try really hard in the ring. That's all it is. There's no real character to go along with it. But over time, I think I've developed my own style of wrestling, the way that I carry myself, the way I do things. Eddie Ryan is a big advocate of saying that you need to be a wrestler all the time. You can't just show up on a show and decide then that you're going to play a wrestler for the day. If you want to be a wrestler, you have to be a wrestler all the time. Yeah. So that's sort of the way I approach things. I'm always carrying myself as Farm Strong Toby Valentine. It doesn't switch on and off. It's just who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you've had many light bulb moments during the last couple of years, especially the more matches you have, the more light bulb moments you get. But when do you feel things really started to click for you in terms of understanding the business, understanding the work that's required in the ring? When do you think that things really started to click and make sense for you in the ring?
That's a good question, because I think that's something that I have asked myself really recently, because over the last it's only the last few months really that I've sort of caught myself thinking, oh, I'm much more confident than I used to be. I feel much more at home in the ring, and I feel like I'm doing a lot better than I was. And I got to attribute a lot of that to training at New Wave, and sort of the confidence that's given me, being around just really positive people who are really invested in your progression, having people like Brendan around who, he'll tell you straight if you're not doing something well, or if you need to, do this or do that better. But he's also fantastic at, building your confidence and telling you that, it's all right to think that you're doing well, because you are. You need to be confident in yourself every now and again. And I think it's only since being at New Wave in the last few months that I've really been going out to each and every one of my matches with a lot more confidence than I had before.
Oh, incredible. And I'm sure that confidence will only build the more experience you have and with every match. But you're just interested in that kind of progression, certainly, through your early days and all them light bulb moments that you hear about. And this brings us to a listener question, a fan question that came through before we went live. And it's from a good friend of the show, Richie, via Facebook. How would you describe your wrestling style? So I know you've touched on it regarding being a big fan of kind of the 70s and the 80s American wrestling, the Von Erichs and the Mid-South and kind of personas like that. And I've seen you a few times and you're very proficient. Like I say, you're a big, strong boy, but you are quite agile as well. And you're famous for using the power slam. But tell us about some of your moves and how you would describe your wrestling style.
Yeah, so it's hard to sort of put it into like a one-word category. I think I'd try and describe it as a bit of a hybrid theory, because I know a lot of guys look at me when I first arrive somewhere or get into a ring and think it's all sort of body slams and shoulder tackles and big man stuff, which there is a lot of that. A lot of my move set in the ring is reliant heavy on picking people up and throwing them real far. But I'm also pretty quick. I got a big vertical leap. So I like to incorporate a lot of that into my wrestling. It's not just all on the ground. There's a bit in the air, and you saw from the big double leapfrog that me and Jordan pulled off as a team. I like to put different aspects of that into my matches to catch my opponents off guard and make it entertaining for the fans. So it's a bit of a mix of everything. I'm not a very good technical wrestler, I will say that. To disappoint my coaches in Joel Redmond and Eddie Ryan especially, I'm not the best technical wrestler in the world. I am trying and really trying to improve that aspect of my game, but no, I'm much more reliant on being athletic and being strong.
Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I'm sure the technical wrestling will come, especially the more time you spend with some of your extraordinary coaches. But another highlight, another kind of match or matches that I want to talk about is against this guy here. Now, we talk about yourself. I think you're 6'1", maybe 230 pounds. Then you got Big Jim Diehard there. And you had a couple of encounters with him in PEW last year. I think there may have been one in June and I think a rematch in September. I think Jim won the first match, and I had him on the show just after that first match. He said to me how impressed he was with a certain Toby Valentine. So I thought, I'll keep my eye on this young man, and I certainly did. And then, of course, you won the rematch in September, a few months later. So going in there with an experienced pro, a veteran of 20 years plus in Big Jim, that must have been another great experience for you, another fantastic learning experience, but also a thrill to go against somebody so big as Big Jim and kind of what he was able to show you in the ring. And let's say 2 good matches under your belt as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, up until that point, I don't think I would say I'd had many what I would class as sort of high profile matches. It'd been sort of, slowly building up until that point. But wrestling Big Jim the first time around was a big opportunity for me. Big Jim is, a really well-known name in British wrestling. And everyone has great things to say about him. He's been around a long time, and for good reason. He's one of the best big men in Britain, and one half of one of the best big men tag teams in the Henchmen with Bent on Destruction. But yeah, getting to wrestling was a big chance for me. It was intimidating, definitely, because I didn't have a lot of experience going into that match. So I didn't know what to expect really, and it shows in that first match, because I definitely got my bell rung quite a lot by Big Jim, as Chris Bronson likes to say, battered from pillar to post. And then getting to have the rematch with Jim I had a lot more confidence going into that one. I knew more what to expect. I'd had more matches in the meantime, and when we came back for the rematch, I like to think I was a lot different to how I was the first time around, and I think that shows picking up the win.
How did you beat the big man? Was it your finisher, the power slam, or how did you actually get the 1, 2, 3? Do you remember?
It was absolutely not the power slam, because as strong as I am at that point, maybe now, but at that point I was not quite strong enough to hoist Big Jim up for the power slam. I seem to remember I beat him with a spear. I just ran through him with every ounce that I had left, I think, from what I remember. It was a pretty last-ditch effort, I seem to remember, on my part, but I think that was what it was.
And you mentioned there that you probably couldn't have beaten him with a power slam then, but maybe now. What sort of training are you putting in, or what sort of hours are you putting in the gym? And obviously you bulked up, you've got a bit more powerful. I think I've seen some pictures of you from a year or so ago comparing you to now. There is certainly a difference. You're obviously putting a lot more work and hours in the gym as well, Toby.
Yeah, definitely. You know, when I was going to first get into wrestling, before I attended my first training session, I went to the gym religiously for about 6 to 9 months before that, preparing for the first wrestling training session. Because I thought before I got into wrestling, I should look like one, or I should at least semi look like one. I don't think I did yet at the point. But and then in my early wrestling training, it was more about getting better at wrestling and getting in better cardio shape and doing this and doing that. And it's not until this year specifically, maybe sort of the tail end of last year, but certainly this year, that I really started to take it seriously in the gym. I'm in there pretty much every single day, regardless of if there's a show or training on the same day. I'll be in the gym too, early mornings, late evenings, whatever. And, you know, I think it's a really important thing to put that work in and to work on yourself, make yourself a better athlete, make yourself a better all-round package for pro wrestling. And I think that's what I'm working towards at the minute.
Absolutely. One other opponent I want to talk to you about, and it's Cian Fox Kelly. Now, I think you faced this gentleman a couple of times. Now, I think one outing was very early on in your career. You may have only had maybe half a dozen matches under your belt before you faced Cian. He was one of your first opponents out of lockdown. And you faced him again about a year and a half later. So this year at some point. Give us your kind of take on wrestling, once again, similar to Jim, another veteran of 15, 20 years of the UK scene, highly respected, very, very skilled performer and wrestler in that ring. Getting to face him twice, kind of year and a half apart. So I'm sure there were differences in your performance and confidence levels, but give us your takeaway moments from facing Cian.
There are so many things to say about wrestling Cian. He is one of the real unsung heroes of British wrestling, I think. I don't think enough people give the credit and the praise to Cian that he deserves. He's one of the best big wrestlers that you will experience. He's a great talker. He's a great professional, technical wrestler, and he's whacks a hell of a punch as well. But I wrestled him in what I want to say was my third ever match in front of people, was against Cian. And, you know, he is such an experienced veteran that match was far better than it had any right to be. He came to my hometown. It was a show that I ran in Holsworthy, in my hometown. And he, you know, came in and fought me there and beat me quite handily. But, you know, I had always wanted to have more matches with Cian after that experience, because I knew that wrestling him would make me a better wrestler every time. And I did have a chance to wrestle him on another show before the match more recently for Southwest Wrestling, on a show for Superstars of Wrestling in, I want to say, somewhere near Bournemouth or Southampton. It was somewhere real far away. But I managed to wrestle him there, and again, more improvement on that one. But it wasn't until wrestling him in Cheltenham at the Frog and Fiddle for Southwest Wrestling that I felt going into that match like I don't know how to put it really, but I felt like I deserved to be there in the match with Cian. You know, I felt like maybe not on his level, but close to it. And, you know, getting the chance to wrestle him again and show him especially, but show a lot of the guys that I have, you know, improved a lot since the first time that we wrestled and the second time. And, you know, proving myself against Cian was a real personal achievement, big personal milestone for me. And I have all the respect in the world for Cian, no matter how many times he punches me in the face or drops his leg on my chest. I have so much respect for him, and I'll wrestle him any day of the week.
Absolutely. And we're going to jump to a couple of questions that came in before we went live. Once again, from friend of the show, Richie. Now, he's got some interesting questions here. 3 matches or opponents that you would like to have in 2023. So I know you've had a good range of opponents and styles of matches for a range of promotions already this year. But do you have any more, and maybe a bucket list of, 1, 2, or 3 opponents or matches you would like to have before the end of the year? He's put you on the spot there. He's put you on the spot.
He's definitely put me on the spot, and he's put me on the spot by asking for just 3. I'm sure that there's a laundry list as long as my arm for matches. But off the top of my head, I think the most important thing for me is having matches that will improve me as a wrestler, and also I want to wrestle the best guys to test myself and to prove myself a bit. So I think number 1 with a bullet on that list has to be Joel Redmond, because he is, regarded by everyone as the benchmark of British wrestling. He's the best wrestler. He has the best cardio. He is in the best shape. He is that guy. So I think wrestling Joel would be a huge thing for me, something that would really, it would be a huge opportunity for me to prove myself. It may go back to that very first match I had where I come back through the curtain and dry heave and cry on the floor because I'm so broken afterwards. But I'd like that test against Joel. And then after that, I think it would be James Ellis, the current New Wave Wrestling champion. James is someone who I think, like I said earlier, has one of the brightest futures in wrestling. I really do believe that. And I think that me and him hopefully we'll have a lot of matches in the future, but I'd like to have a match with James, to really sort of put our stamp on British wrestling and really make a showcase out of the sort of next generation. And then after that, I'll slip a tag team match in there for me and Jordan. I would absolutely love for me and Jordan to wrestle the Smoking Aces, Charlie Sterling and Nick Riley, who I think if they're not the best, they are certainly in the top, very, very top of tag teams in Britain. They are such fantastic wrestlers, one of the best tag teams I've ever seen live. They have blown me away every time I've seen them. I've met Nick Riley properly a few times. He's a fantastic bloke and a real supportive veteran in British wrestling. And, they're both guys who come out of the Southwest. They represent our turf, up in Progress and for all the big companies. So I'd love to go against them to prove our mettle, me and Jordan.
Absolutely. And final question from me then. What have you enjoyed most about your time in professional wrestling on the British wrestling circuit so far over the last 1.5, 2 years? What have you enjoyed most?
It's got to be meeting the people that I've met, I think. Not just the people that I've met through training, who are I consider them some of my best friends in the world now. Jordan being one of them, Kurt Rain, Kid Devon, Ruby, Echo Reed, not Echo Reed, Echo. There's no Reed. She'll be very upset with me for saying that. LA Taylor, Eddie Ryan. Thank you, I appreciate that. But all these people I've met through training, and then and New Wave as well. Alex Vaughan and Shane Hooker and countless others. But just going to different shows and meeting the people that I've met, whether it's been the people that I've wrestled or teamed with or just been in locker rooms with, I've met some just fantastic people with great stories and great journeys to where they are now. And it's one of the experiences that you don't think about getting into it, but it's something that I think is really fantastic about what we do. Is just the people that we get to meet.
100%. Great answer. And before we ask you for your socials, I just want to quickly flick through the guests that I have for the remainder of May. Now, it's only May the 1st, and I've got Farmstrong on the show on the very first day of May, of course. But this week, I've actually got 3 live interviews. This being the first, in 2 days' time, I've got the freshest, the flyest, the finest Harrison Leon, doing some great things in UBW around Leighton Buzzard, and of course Sacrifice Pro in Bedfordshire. He's recently featured on Roy Johnson's Everything Pattern show that happened a few weeks ago. So it'd be great to hear from Harrison Leon, another very bright up-and-coming individual. I think he's like 6'5". So he's got a very, very bright future, got a fantastic look. Can't wait to speak to Harrison this coming Wednesday, just 2 days' time. And then at the end of the week, Friday the 5th, I've got Jay White. Not that Jay White, promoter Jay White, the promoter of Immortal Wrestling, coming onto the show to hype up and to talk to us about his next show, Immortal Combat, which is happening in my hometown of Westbury on the 27th of May. Jay White coming on the show on the 5th, Friday the 5th, to talk all about Immortal Combat. And then next Wednesday, the 10th of, and let's just bring up the 10th of May. I've got that gentleman there. Probably needs no introduction, but the Prince of Pace, Callum Newman, will be coming on to the Wrestling with John as Wednesday the 10th. Arguably one of the best young performers on the UK scene. I don't think anybody can describe him as up and coming because he's been on the scene for many, many years, but probably one of the best performers, one of the best wrestlers on the UK scene, and doing fantastic things all around the country for promotions like Rev Pro and Progress and so on. I could go on all day about Callum Newman, such a fantastic talent. And then, of course, to cap off the month of May, as I mentioned at the top of the show, episode 300, a milestone landmark episode of Wrestling with John, as episode 300 with Nina Samuels herself, be coming on to tell us all about her fantastic, glorious career and about her time in WWE, NXT UK, and the wonderful success she's having back on the UK Indies, including being the current women's champion of Riot Cabaret. So really looking forward to having all of those guests come on. In fact, I've got all 5 interviews in the month of May, all within the first 15 days. So wish me luck. That's a lot of prep, but I'm going to enjoy every single second of it. But we've still got Strong Toby Valentine with us. And before we say goodbye, there's an opportunity, Toby, for you to throw out your socials. So where my listeners, where my audience can get in touch, say hi to Toby Valentine, reach out to you on socials, have a little bit of a chatter if they so choose to, or maybe buy some merch. But where can we reach out and learn more about Toby Valentine? And if it helps, I've got a little ticker running along the bottom of the screen. There we go.
Wonderful. Yep. You can find me on Instagram at Toby Valentine 14. I'm on Facebook. Just search Toby Valentine on Facebook. And if you want to get in touch with me through email for whatever reason, shows or whatever, it's tobyvalentinepw@gmail.com. So reach out.
There we go. Look at that. And there's the slide. Beautiful looking guy. There's all the contact details. Get in touch, reach out. And merch, you do have some t-shirts left, which you're selling at shows, I understand, and maybe some stickers. Tell us a bit about that. I love the t-shirt, love the design. Can't wait to get my hands on one of those myself. But tell us a bit about the Farm Strong t-shirt.
Yeah, so I've got a bit of it's only a very select few left. I'm running real low. I'm selling it at shows, so if you see me anywhere, hopefully I'll have my bag with me. So yeah, the t-shirts I've got and the stickers, which are basically just the t-shirt, just in a rectangle.
Absolutely.
Big shout out to Kurt Rain for designing those for me. He's a great friend. And yeah, if you come see me, come get a t-shirt.
There we go. But is there any kind of final message, a parting message from Farm Strong Toby Valentine to all of your supporters for the last few years or maybe longer, your fans, your following, your friends, family members maybe, but a parting message from Toby Valentine to send us on our way?
Okay, so I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you to anyone who has ever brought a t-shirt from me. I really appreciate that, or just followed me on Instagram or Facebook, or kept up with anything I'm doing, bought a ticket to a show that I'm on, or to come see me specifically at a show. It means everything to me. And to all my friends who I train with at New Wave and the Sweat Lodge, I'm forever grateful for you guys for making me the person that I am. And especially I want to say thank you to Eddie Ryan for making me the wrestler that I am. I wouldn't be here and be the kind of the wrestler that I am without him. So thank you, boss man. I appreciate you more than you know. But yeah, come and see me at shows. Come to May 20th and see me beat Chris Bronson for the SWW Heavyweight Championship. That's going to be one for the ages. So don't miss it.
There we go. But Farm Strong, Toby Valentine, it's been a thrill speaking to you for the last hour and 17 minutes. But take care, my friend, and I'll see you at the Exmouth Pavilion on May the 20th. But take care, my friend, and I'll see you at the shows.
Take care, Jonas. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.